Welcome to Linking into Sales. This is Martin Brossman.
I'm Greg Hyer.
And I'm Elyse Archer.
And we are, welcome to episode 95 of the Social Selling Podcast. We have an awesome guest who will be joining us in just a moment. But first, let's go ahead and talk about a few social selling news items. First, you may have heard us in previous episodes about how important it is to change your password. And it has become even more critical for you to change your password, as with the LinkedIn hack that had happened back in 2012, and I think we had talked about how that list had kind of gotten out onto some of the dark webs, the inner dark webs of the internet, and has been available for sale.
Not too much money either.
No, it's only like $2,500, and I'm just tempted, real tempted. But also Twitter had another password leak from around the same time period. If you had a MySpace account,
check it.
Check it. Actually, I would recommend going out, and if you don't use MySpace anymore, delete your account unless you need to maintain another social property out there because you like to name grab yourself. But what you should probably do is change your passwords, because there's been reports of people having basically password or login attempts on their bank accounts through their website, banking websites.
So they're using the info on LinkedIn to attempt to hack the bank accounts.
Yeah. So important point here to kind of keep in mind is that as a public service announcement, make sure that your bank password is different from every other password you use on the internet.
And probably your email would be smart to do as well.
Yeah.
So because they can recover to your email and then steal everything.
That's right. If your bank offers two-factor or two-step authentication, I'd recommend using that. We actually did a video, a quick little tutorial on how to set up two-step verification for LinkedIn in particular. Definitely go out to the YouTube channel and check that out.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes as well. But basically what it does is that if you attempt to log in, put in your username and your password, and verifies that you are who you are, LinkedIn will then send you a text message. You'll enter in the code that you receive in the text message on your phone. So it's a great way to kind of protect your account. I know Twitter offers something like that. Google offers it with Gmail, with their Authenticator app. There's a number of different tools out there which you can use to protect your passwords. You can also use something like OnePass to manage all of your passwords there. But if you're going to be out there selling online, and you're going to end up managing a whole bunch of different social media accounts or other areas that could be sensitive, then we recommend using some sort of password management tool or have some sort of way to take and kind of protect that information. So check out LastPass. They do have a Google Chrome extension. As you know, every social seller should be using Google Chrome because of the awesome platform that it is for social selling tools. But if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to us on LinkedIn. We could offer some recommendations from that standpoint to help and protect your stuff.
Why don't we talk about our sponsor today?
Yeah, let's give him a second.
We want to mention our sponsor, which is NC State Technology Training Solutions. They have a large assortment of professional training from Photoshop to fiber optics to Excel to a social media management course I teach with Karen, a certificate program, and a social selling with LinkedIn with Greg Hyer. In fact, we're recording this over his lunch break of his email marketing class here on site today. And so check them out. And Greg, how can they learn more about our sponsor?
Yeah, absolutely. So just it's real simple. Just head out to go to linkingintosales.com/NCSUTTS, and we will take you to where you need to go. That's linkingintosales.com/NCSUTTS. And we hope to see you in a future class.
Excellent. Now, does it need to be caps for them?
Either way.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, if you want to do caps, do all caps. If
all right, knock yourself out. Good.
Knock yourself out.
Excellent. Let's move into our exciting show today.
Yeah, so joining us today is Barbara Giamanco. And she is the owner and president of Socially Centered Sales. I believe that's the name. Is that right?
Is that right, Barbara?
Social-centered selling.
Social-centered selling. Shame on us. Thank you.
She is I would affectionately call her as a bag-carrying salesperson.
That's right.
Who is,
that's her words, right?
Who is actually has spent a number of years working in sales with Microsoft and with some other companies as well. But since about looks like about 2012, she formally organized and created Socially Centered Selling, which is a social selling training and advisory group. So she works with organizations to help them help their salespeople learn social selling strategies, develop leadership credibility and capabilities in order to accelerate sales opportunities, increase pipeline and revenue. That sounds
excellent.
That sounds like our kind of guest.
Great to have you.
Yeah, the only thing is I actually started my business in 2001.
Okay.
And what you saw with 2012 is originally I started my company under the name of Talent Builders, Inc. And it is still Talent Builders, Inc. But it became really clear by about 2010, 2011, 2012 that people were confusing the company as a recruitment organization. And so I needed a DBA that better defined, kind of what the company was all about. So I've been at this for a little while and I love it.
Awesome. Well, and I know, and we've, I think we've been in contact a few times over over the past few years, ever since this. We've been doing linking into sales since around 2010, 2009 is when we kind of formalized and launched. Saw a need for salespeople to kind of learn a little bit more about social, and then as things started to erupt, I guess because of LinkedIn and then maybe a few Twitter chats, I think that may have been how we got in touch. But it's been great actually just having conversations back and forth, because when I hear somebody say bag carrying salesperson, I honestly I get a little nervous.
Yeah, right.
Why is that?
Yeah, you have to know that.
Well, honestly, it's because normally inside salespeople aren't out there, carrying bags. And I know that inside sales can do social selling just as much as anybody who's out there in the field as well. I think there's obviously different techniques you would use for both. But I think what you mean by bag carrying is more as they have a quota. And they have to achieve that particular.
Well, I want to say, as a former IBMer, all the salespeople were carrying a bag with their demo charts and everything else in it. So that's what it meant to me. So.
And that's kind of where it first started. But it really does mean, I was a quota carrying salesperson in corporate. I run my own business. Obviously, I'm running on a quota in order to make sure the bills get paid and Lily gets her dog food. So I think part of the reason that I like to call that out is because we have a lot of so-called social selling experts who have no sales experience whatsoever. And so as far as I'm concerned, you can't be an expert in this field. You may understand the technology, and I give you kudos for that. However, I just don't see how you can counsel sales organizations if you've never lived by a quota. But, that's just me.
Oh, yeah, and that's true.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. So it's I have to remember back. I've been in marketing long enough now that it's been a little while since I remember when I had a quota. So
that's right. Well, let's. I want to jump in and I want to just start with, what do you think it takes to be successful in social selling today, Barbara?
What do I think it takes to be successful? Well, I think that probably the first thing is just if you want to be successful, you have to recognize that the world has changed. And this seems to be a little bit of a challenge for many sellers today. And more importantly, it seems to be a bit of a challenge for sales leaders because we live in a vastly different world than we did, say, 5-10 years ago. And so the first thing I think is that willingness to shift your mindset to say, buyers have different expectations. What worked back in the day doesn't work, and I need to shift my approach. The second thing I think it takes to be successful most certainly is that you've got to get some training on the skills. So I mean, I love that Greg's doing a class today, and I love hearing that we've got more classes out there going on, because this is not about just clicking on buttons. There's really a strategy behind how you use the technology to support your sales goals. So I think those are a couple of things that are super important. And then, of course, I can't leave any conversation without saying that it also starts with a strategy. So you have a strategy for the sales organization, certainly, but we as sales professionals also have to create our own strategy for what we're trying to accomplish on social, how we're going to measure and track, what's the right kind of messaging to support what our buyer cares about, and all those sorts of things. So I think those are a few of the things that it takes to be successful. What do you all think?
Well, I agree with you entirely, and I think you've said something very important. Is the desire is to jump in and do,
Right.
and making sure you have a strategy. I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit more on what does a social selling strategy look like now, at the business and professional level as it did years ago when you were carrying the sales professional demo in a notebook or something.
Well, I mean, when I think about creating a plan, and this is, I do a lot of work with organizations, sales and marketing orgs to pull their strategy together first, which I think is critical before you roll out a training program, by the way. And then from the seller's point of view, I think it's super important, especially because you have to start by defining the characteristics of the ideal buyer. Now, this should be obvious at this point, but it's amazing to me how many groups I'll talk to or organizations I'll go into, and you know what? I'm sorry, but it's not everybody who's has a pulse. I mean, sure, they can all buy from you, but if you really want to be very effective, I'm fond of saying that if you're targeting everyone, you're targeting no one. So your plan starts with really being clear on the characteristics of that buyer persona, and that's going to be different. I think between, if you serve different industries and that sort of thing. Next is thinking about the kind of training you need for yourself. And there's plenty of great opportunities to get training. You're getting training right here today. There's more formalized training like what Greg does and others. And then I also think you have to think about your messaging, which, by the way, I hope we get a chance to jump into this topic because I am so tired of the crappy emails and phone calls that are just horrible, and how anyone thinks that's going to drive a sales outcome, I just don't know. Yep. Then finally, by understanding the buyer, it'll inform which platform you'll tend to use in social media. Big clue, it's not every single one of them. You have to really target your activity and effort. And then, as I said, we need to measure because there are so many things that you can measure and track, not the least of which are new leads and opportunities, net new sales meetings, new inbound calls, all these sorts of things. So, it's not, your question, Martin, was like, is this different than back in the day? Not really, because even when I started in sales and we didn't have the sophisticated technology that we do today, I still had a sales plan for myself. I still knew what I was trying to accomplish, and I still thought about what my buyer cared about. So I don't think it's that different. It's just now that we're factoring the online.
Barbara, I'm curious for leaders who have some sort of an existing training plan in place for their team, and they think that they're doing a decent job of training on social selling. How do they tell if they are? How do they tell if there's maybe a gap in the training where they might need to come in and fill it or do some reinforcement?
Yeah, Elyse, it's a great question. There is certainly a tendency that organizations of a certain size, they will at a certain point decide that they can take the learning program internal. And I know a lot of organizations that do that successfully. Kirsten Bulliu over at SAP, she's done an excellent job of bringing into the organization a great social selling program. She really gets it. She starts with strategy. She understands how it fits sales and so on. But I think a lot of organizations I think they're a little bit naive. They think they really do understand the external picture of the network in total, but they don't because they're not living it every day. So I think smart organizations, and I'll say that my customers are pretty smart for hiring me, right? But they tend to keep somebody like myself engaged so that they get that external counsel. And now, how can they tell if they're successful? Well, I have some strong opinions about that. I don't believe, as much as I love LinkedIn and LinkedIn Navigator, I don't think it's all about the SSI score. I think the way you tell if you're successful is, again, if you've determined those metrics that are most important to you. Sales execs usually tell me it's more net new sales meetings. They want to see more inbound calls coming in as a result of doing work in social. There are a lot of things that you can measure and track and tie them right back into your CRM. So that's how you know if it's working. Is it driving new sales conversations? Are your people getting more sales meetings? Are more people coming to them with inquiries versus them having to go out and chase the opportunities? Those are just a few of the ways. Having a great profile and a high SSI score, I think, is only just a small fraction of how you determine the success.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like most organizations probably at this point, especially if they're not a larger company like SAP, they don't have the internal infrastructure to successfully deliver a social selling training program unless they've really, really put a lot of emphasis on building that up.
That's right, and and this is this takes work. I mean, it's like every other aspect of sales, at least. It takes a lot of work, and so, I think having some guidance from some people who have done it, who've been living it for a number of years, you need that support initially, and then if you feel that you can take that and adopt that inside your organization, fantastic. But I think about social selling training in the same way I think about other sales training. It could be spin selling, solution selling, could be challenger sale. You just can't read the book and take it internal and then all of a sudden be as successful developing a program as you can be if you work with the people who have lived it, breathed it, have developed the steps to lead to success. So I don't say don't do it. I mean, I think that's pretty normal. Organizations feel that they can save some money by doing it internally. But I also think there's some value in having that consistent touch with people on the outside who live this day to day. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah.
Plus, the other problem with training, by the way, is, and I'm going to be curious to hear Greg's perspective on this, but I think even still today, all these years later after I started my company, I think there is a tendency for organizations to still view training as an event versus an ongoing cycle of learning. And so that's the other thing, like anything else in sales, you can't do one LinkedIn training and say, well, there we go, we've got social selling locked up now, and then we're good until next year's sales kickoff, right? There's things changing all the time, and you need to make sure that your people are prepared throughout the whole process. So, my mission is still to change that attitude if we can. It's not just about the kickoff; it's about what happens all year long.
I totally agree with that. I think for training organizations, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback.
Barbara, are you hearing some feedback?
Not at all.
Okay.
I heard it.
Oh, okay. All right, it cleared up. There we go. That might be just Google switching back and forth. We'll edit that part out.
Yeah.
So I think that I think you're absolutely right. As far as training not being a one-time event, and it has to be an ongoing. It does require ongoing coaching, mentoring, continuing to kind of refine the skills. Because I think training in itself is designed to give you, or should be designed to give you, the fundamentals. Maybe give you some tactics, but you have to be able to take and expand on it. So it gives you that foundation. And if I think from internal inside the organization. The sales leadership should probably be constantly measuring what's going on and have that measurement plan put in place so that way they can provide the coaching that their reps need in order to discover new ways to achieve their goals. There have been too many times where actually we have a couple clients that we're working with that they want to know the tactics and they want to know some routines and things like that, but it's like they're asking for one-time hits to solve small little problems, but they have to continue to. We need to help them kind of refine the process and get into a regular routine of making this. Get out of the traditional sales mindset and let's adopt this new approach as an ongoing behavior as opposed to just a quick fix.
Yeah. Well, I think that, so you've read my work, you've seen my stuff. Mm-hmm. There's no easy button, people. I mean, sales is a great profession to be in it. I've been in it for more than 20 years. I absolutely love it. And it takes work. Social selling is not a strategy in and of itself. It's another set of approaches and tools that you can use to help you at specific points in the sales process. Now, I have friends who think that it goes throughout the entire sales process, and maybe technically if you're keeping in touch with a buyer as you're working through the buying discussion. But in general, what we're talking about is using new channels to reach buyers who are blocking those emails and phone calls, right? So it's really helping you on expanding networks and developing relationships on the front end, demonstrating that you are someone to turn to because you're providing value and education and relevancy. And we can use it to prepare for sales calls. But I am still the person who will always say, no matter what, You get the sales meeting, your ability to be a great problem solver, a consultative salesperson, a great listener, somebody who can really craft solutions with a customer. That's what closes deals. So I, of course, get annoyed with and so I understand sometimes why sales VPs, and there's this impression created that we can use these tools. It's a shortcut, but it's not. Right? It's not at all. If you can't sell, so what if you were great at getting a lot of meetings through social media? It doesn't matter. It's then about, can you move that conversation through to a close, right? Can you convert it into business? Because if you can't do that, I mean, what's the point?
Exactly, and I think to one of the points that we were talking about just before we broadcasted, one of your major pet peeves, which I definitely want to talk about. But this one's really relevant because you actually recently had a post on this, so I would recommend that folks go out to Barbara's LinkedIn profile. We'll have a link in the show notes on how to get there, or you can do a search on LinkedIn to get there. But you actually talked about how you were receiving some emails that basically contained, in essence, just a pitch. There was nothing of value inside that email that would make you want to continue on with that conversation. So let's talk about that pet peeve.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a believer that your message matters, and you can call me old-fashioned or old school, but I really do believe that you got one shot to make a great first impression. It's really hard to come back around when you have, shot yourself in the foot by doing something sort of boneheaded in your message, whether it's making a phone call or sending an email. And so, as a matter of fact, because it bothers me so much, because I can't stand seeing organizations waste time and money by having people make all these phone calls and send emails, but they're not even evaluating the quality of that activity or the quality of that message that's in the email, that for a little over a year, I actually saved up emails that I was receiving. And I had colleagues send me the ones they were receiving. And if people are interested, they can go to the blog, barbaragiamanco.com, and go and download a free ebook, and it's called Your Sales Message Matters. Do you know what yours says about you? So when people come at me with a pitch, and I got to say, guys, and at least gals, I got to say that when last week I got one of probably the worst. I've gotten a lot that are bad, but this one went just like this. I don't know who this guy is, so no relationship between us whatsoever. Hi, Barbara, I'm so-and-so, and we set some really aggressive goals for ourselves this quarter, and so we really want to blow out our number, and for that reason, we're offering a discount on blah, blah, blah. Now, that's about the worst of the worst, because the reality is I could care less about their aggressive sales goal. Do you think any other buyer cares? I mean, that is just about the dumbest move I think I've seen in a long time. So I think what happens is, and we're seeing a problem with LinkedIn InMail in that not getting through an email or phone calls, so now they're trying to take the same spamming message over to InMail. And executives I talk to all the time say they just delete that stuff. So you're not only wasting effort, you risk damaging your brand reputation. Now, so what I would say, to be fair to salespeople, a lot of this is sales management's fault, because they are measuring number of phone calls made and number of emails sent. They're not looking at the quality. So if I am in a sales organization where I know that's how part of my performance is being measured, and I know what those KPIs are, well, of course I'm going to make the phone calls and send the emails, because I got to check the boxes, right? But all that effort is not paying off. So I'm a huge fan of saying, hey, and this, by the way, is why you need to know your buyer and what they care about. You need to find ways to add value and make sure that the message that you send is relevant to them. And, I could talk to you all about this for an hour, because I just think it's such a missed opportunity if people just took a few minutes to step back and think about, what does my buyer care about, and how can I demonstrate to them that I'm the person that can help them solve the problems that they're dealing with? I mean, and it's even the basics. Get their name right. if make sure you know if they are the decision maker or not. I mean, it's just not hard to look this stuff up. So, all right, I'll take a breath, but that's my rant.
That's good. Good rant.
And just to kind of add to it real quick, I actually got I got a message from somebody who kind of overdid it, and actually it came from a LinkedIn sales rep. A third-degree connection is like, and it started out, hey, social selling guru Greg, I see that you're a baseball coach. I love baseball too. And like, don't you think it's time for your organization to have Sales Navigator? And I replied back and I said, I got a great podcast for you to listen to.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so you went from I love baseball too to let me sell my stuff.
Yeah,
and
terribly.
You're not making the link. And I actually just worked with the team last week, and I always leave it open to anyone who attends my programs or I do work with. They can ask me, they can come to me anytime. They can send me an email they're thinking about sending anytime. No matter what, I will stop and take a look. And so this young lady sent me an email, and it was nicely written. And it fell into the same trap of, it was so nice to meet you at this event, and then it started talking about the company, how they were expanding, how they'd just done a couple of projects, she'd like to come in and learn more. So all I did was suggest a few tweaks. So instead of talking about them, it was so great to meet you, and I remember that you said that 3 challenges that you're faced with are X, Y, and Z. And you know what? We have some clients that face the same problems. In fact, we just closed a project up with a company that really kind of looks like yours, and I thought if you had a few minutes, maybe we could get on the phone and talk about that and see what you think. Now, that's just coming off the top of my head. What would happen if I thought about it a little bit more? But who is a buyer more likely to respond to? Me saying, I've got some information about businesses that look like theirs, and we've helped solve those challenges. You might be interested in how we might help you, versus, hi, I'm so-and-so, you really don't know me, but let me tell you how fabulous our stuff is. Happens all the time. And please don't get me started on the people on LinkedIn who connect with you, and then the next message is the sales pitch.
Yeah.
It's like, just don't do that. In fact, when they do, I just disconnect them.
Excellent. Elyse, over to you. I can see a question coming on.
Oh, I'm just taking notes while she talks. But no, it's true. It's so true. I was just kind of sitting there evaluating my own introduction as we went through. I'm curious, kind of going back to the training piece, Barbara, because I know that this is something that you're so big on. One of the objections that I sometimes hear from executives is, well, we don't want to invest too much in training our team because we may have just hired a bunch of newbies or rookies, and I know they're only going to be here for a year or two, or we just we're worried about what if they leave. What would you say to an executive who gives you that objection?
I'm trying to think of the way to do this in a politically correct and very professional way.
We don't want professional here. Go on.
I mean, are you kidding me? Really? Listen, you have sales objectives to achieve. So invest in your people and help them be a success. They're going to be a success at your business. And by the way, if you invest in them and help them be successful, there's an extremely high likelihood, and research backs this up, that they actually won't leave. I think that objection is very common, especially as they're thinking about the millennial workforce, because I think it's a bit of a myth, actually, that millennials are just going to hop, skip around. I know that the biggest thing that employees are looking for is for their employers to invest in them. But let's say worst case scenario, you invest and you get great productivity out of somebody for a year, year and a half. Wasn't that worth the investment? Versus you don't give them any training whatsoever and they're not really productive at your organization. And so it's a year or a year and a half of nothing, right? And you're not furthering your sales goals. So I personally think that's just so ridiculous to say, I'm not going to invest because they're going to leave, because really the opposite is more likely to happen. They're going to want to stay because they know you care about investing in them, and not everybody does. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, in one of our training courses, online training courses, we actually talk about how the individual sales rep and needs to not only build a professional brand with social selling, but through social selling, but also take and immerse themselves within the company brand too. And I can see where there's some objections to that, and it looks like sales leadership will probably have similar objections there as well. But I think that so there's a question on whether or not the separation or well, I guess it would be kind of like separation anxiety of trying to re-identify yourself when you leave one company to go to another. After spending so much time of building your own personal brand, or even sales leadership trying to build up the brands of their individual salespeople, so that way social selling can be successful for them.
Well, what's interesting about that, Greg, is that how is this actually any different than before we had all these social channels? I mean, I worked for 4 great technology companies, and each company, of course, I got immersed in the brand, and then when I went to another organization, I learned them, and I became part of their brand, right? So, I don't think it's any different, really, and I don't know why people tend to get hung up on things. Personally, I think sometimes that just ends up being an excuse for not actually doing what they need to do in order to further the business forward. So look, it looks like we've got some visitors.
Yeah, I think no worries, you're good.
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah. Well,
just repeat that if you wouldn't mind, Barbara.
And then on that point about the training too, Elyse, what I would also say is, and for anybody, if your employer is not investing in you, okay, that's great, but don't make that an excuse not to invest in yourself. I mean, I have spent thousands through the years investing in learning programs and books and audio, and now I listen. I mean, you can get so much great education, like this podcast, I might add. You can get such great education where you don't even have to invest more than, say, an hour of your time. So, yes, organizations should invest in you, but don't let that be an excuse for you not investing in yourself. If you want to be awesome in sales, or just awesome in life and business, marketing, whatever discipline you're focused on, make sure that you're always up in your game. I would say that's one of the things that I do every single day. I never miss an opportunity to learn something new. And though we're not probably going to get into it, it's the reason why I really stand up and say it isn't about your age, it's about your attitude. Anybody can learn new things. Anybody. I mean, I met a gentleman recently. He was 80 years old, and he shared with me some of the sharpest, most brilliant things about business. So I think, as you're thinking about learning, remember we can learn from everybody, no matter who they are.
Excellent. I think it's a great point there to end on that. But I know we would love to have you come back on the show. Would you be willing to come back on?
Well, sure. As you can tell, I'm never at a loss for words.
Well, I have one question I'm asking a lot of people right now, because there's a lot of changes going on at LinkedIn. If you were asked to take over LinkedIn, what would be the key things you would do to improve effective engagement there?
If I were to take over LinkedIn, oh my gosh, you put me on the spot here. So how about if I just focus on one area, and that is on the area of LinkedIn Navigator. I think Navigator is an excellent, I think it's an excellent product. I think it needs a few things that it doesn't have. For example, if I have Navigator and I can build a deep dive lead list, why can't I export that in order to be able to upload it into my CRM? If I don't have, I guess they're not even teamed up with Salesforce anymore, so maybe it's only Dynamics anymore. So, that seems to me to be a real miss. Also then, speaking to the example that Greg gave, I think that, I've been approached by LinkedIn reps who clearly are not walking the talk. So, if you're going to be claiming to be a social selling organization, I think you need to demonstrate that you do really understand how the world works. I've had customers tell me that, LinkedIn has approached them, and they get the meeting with the buyer, and they get into the meeting, and then it's like, well, tell me all about your business. Really? I mean, you should know. So, I mean, if I think about Navigator, I think they could do a much better job really positioning it as a sales tool, but it's certainly not the be-all, end-all. And again, I love everyone at LinkedIn. I love the product. I use it extensively, but I use it in combination with other tools because I can only get so much information, and I need, some other things. So I don't know if that's helpful, But maybe the one last thing would be figure out who you are. Like, what business are you in anymore? It's getting hard to tell. Are you in selling a sales platform? It's still recruitment for sure, because that drives a ton of their revenue. They've got marketing services, and they've got with lynda.com, they've got these learning services. Now they just rolled out the what is it? I forget the name of it, where you as a consultant or a freelancer can now put your profile in there. So then they're a publisher. So I'm trying to figure out what is their business and what is it going to be going forward. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's great, and I want to give you a chance. Is there one message we didn't ask you about you'd love for our listeners to hear? Because our demographic is professionals in B2B selling, learning, and sharpening their saw on social selling. And then we'll wrap it up.
All right, so one thing. I think the one thing is, if you haven't gotten started, just go for it. Don't worry about making mistakes. You know, get training from people like Greg, myself, and others. You know, watch the podcast. But this is the way the world is going. And the second thing I would say is keep those consultative sales skills sharp. The more you do that, you will always remain super competitive in the marketplace, because a lot's going to shake out in the next 4 years. And so if you want to be the best of the best, then make sure you focus on attention, on having those great sales skills. I mean, beyond that, we've talked about some really great things. And if I can help anybody listening in any way, you can always reach out. I'll help answer a question. But I guess my main message is change the approach, people. Ditch the pitch and really come at the customer thinking about what the customer cares about versus what you want to sell. That's probably my parting message. Care about the customer, and it comes across and they know it, you're going to win so many more deals. So I appreciate you all having me on the show today. It's a lot of fun on a Friday.
Well, we greatly appreciate having you on, and I think listeners can understand why we brought you on, and we're going to bring you back too.
Yeah.
Because,
thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're very, very much in line with what we've been saying. It's great to hear other social selling influencers and trainers and business owners out there as well. Hear what you have to say, basically. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. I think if anybody would like to connect with Barb Giamanco, definitely go out to her blog at barbaragiamanco.com, and we'll actually put a link in the show notes to a couple of our other websites.
Thank you.
So that way you can find that, and we'll put a link to her LinkedIn profile. Again, this is it's episode 95, so just do a search on the website for 95, and it will take you right there. And then let's go ahead and close it up here real quick. And the last thing we just want to mention is that if you haven't already, sign up for our free. It's free, right?
It is free.
Okay.
And I am really going to I'm making a simple request of our listeners. You've listened to us. We've been on the air for 5 years. I want you to do a favor for all of us. I want you to go to socialselling.training. socialselling.training. I want you to go and sign up and take our LinkedIn profile setup class and our Twitter, and I guarantee if it's not worth your while, I'll give you your money back. Oh, it's free, isn't it?
It's free.
Oh well. Anyway, I'll send you a sticker or something. But no, really, take the time to do it. We were getting people in. We didn't hold back. In fact, we got Elise's input to look over it from hers. And we've had several people who have said, "My gosh, why are you giving this away?"
Yeah. And that's true. We've had a number of folks actually say, they looked at the course and they said, "Well, I never knew that," or they've said, you need to put this up on another site and actually sell it, or why aren't you selling it on yours? And it's because part of the reason is because we are very interested in moving the conversation forward. So we believe that the fundamentals of setting up a profile are absolutely critical and helpful for getting you started with social selling. So we have a whole bunch. We have 12 more courses or so that are going to be coming out over the next year. We have one we're wrapping up now, which should be up hopefully this month, and which will talk about social selling routine and establishing a social selling routine. It's about 4 or 5 hours worth of content that we put together in this particular course that we'll make available to you as well. I think we'll charge a little bit for it, but
well, there could be some special offer for the people who get on there and take advantage of the free thing first. I'm not saying that, promising it, but
Or just
Spoken like a true salesman.
that's right. At least we want to let you say add a wrap-up piece, and then we'll close it out. So we'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, no, this was awesome. Thank you so much, Barbara. And I think my dogs are now adding in a wrap-up piece as well, so my apologies, but they enjoyed it as well. And I'm passing this along to all of my sales managers, too. They definitely need to hear this, so thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us on the Social Selling Podcast by Linking Into Sales. Don't forget, you can take and find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music under the new podcast section, TuneIn, Player FM, and YouTube. Don't forget, also come out and visit us at linkingintosales.com. Sign up for our training over at socialselling.training. And if you have any questions or want to connect with us, definitely reach out to us on LinkedIn or shoot us an email at info@linkingintosales.com.
Excellent. This is Martin Brossman.
Greg Hyer.
And Elyse Archer.
Y'all have a great day.